Okay, what's up guys? The Arena Doc's back here for another spoiler review video. So we just have a quick one for you tonight. We've got about 10 cards to review, lots of exciting ones, so we'll get right to it.
Let's take a look. So first up we have Abba, brook, caretaker, 6 mana, 2 green for a 4/4. Comes down with hexproof and reads at the beginning of your combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. Obviously a bomb and limited. I mean a 4 mana or a 6 mana 4/4 with hexproof, pumping your other creatures. Going to be a bomb and limited. Let's take a look at the backside.
That's right, it's even better.
Once you transform it into the werewolf side, it's a 6/6 hexproof. Gives hexproof to all your other permanents, not just creatures. And at the beginning of your combat on your turn, you put 2+1/+1 counters on every creature you control. So this just pumps your entire board, gives all your permanents hexproof. It has hexproof itself. The only thing that's going to save your opponent at this stage is a sweeper. This might be great in a green-white deck to really take it over the top once you have a big board presence, really just to pump through that damage. I think this has great art. I really like this card. I'm excited to play with it.
Yeah, this is disgusting. This card is just insane. I mean, if you have any board, it's crazy because it's 2+1 counters every turn. So you play this guy pre-combat. If it's night, I mean, it's insane, totally insane. It doesn't have haste, but who knows? Maybe you have one of the guys that gives another creature haste in play, and then it's just game. But yeah, this is a beast. This is exactly what you want to spend 6 mana on.
I think if this had base haste, it'd be getting banned.
Yeah, no, that's
This is an awesome card.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, nice. Cemetery Illuminator is next. He is a 1 blue creature spirit, a 2/3 flyer. When he enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. You can look at the top card of your library anytime, and then once each turn you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled by the Cemetery Illuminator. So a 2/3 flyer is decent for 3. I mean, that at baseline stats and abilities is playable, and then this card gives you card advantage, which is something you look for in any card that you want to play, and it gets better as time goes on. So the more cards you exile, or the more card types, I should say, the more opportunity you have to play cards off the top of your library, and especially in a deck where you've got some kind of graveyard mill. This is going to be even better. This is going to be, you're going to be getting lands. And the only downside, they kind of put a limiter on it because this is only 3 mana after all, is you can only do it once a turn. They don't want you playing the whole, your whole slew of cards right off the top, including a land, and then just going off. So anyway, I think it's great. I think for 3 mana, I mean, this is doing a lot. I see why they made it a mythic, just because it's got a high power level. It's not legendary, but yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think it's a great card. Obviously, going to be great in limited. I'm going to give you that card advantage you need. In constructed, there's a lot of removal running around right now, and playing this on turn 3 is almost always going to be spot removed, so I don't think you're going to get as much card advantage as you would hope. So I really think this is going to shine more in limited, but who knows, there's a lot of red-blue decks running around with sorceries and instants, and if you get this down on turn 3 or 4 and you draw a few cards, that might be all you need to win the game.
Yeah, on the same page.
So next we have Creepy Puppeteer. 4 mana, 1 red for a 4/3 with haste. And whenever Creepy Puppeteer attacks with at least exactly one other creature, that creature can become a 4/3 as well. I think this is a great card. It might actually find a home in a standard deck, a red aggressive deck, making your low 1-drop goblin that became kind of obsolete early on after it's pumped through some damage, turning into a 4/3 and keeping its abilities. This could be a quick kind of 8 damage push through to get them down into burn range, and can sneak out some games there.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think, because there is it's not common right now, but there is that red deck that runs goblins, and you get I think this will shine most in a deck that has a lot, like the deck is stacked with a lot of those low drop creatures, and then you've kind of slowed down your pace, has you run out of gas kind of, and they're starting to stabilize the board. This might be a nice kind of maybe 2 of or 3 of in the deck as like a last hope, where you can push a quick 8 damage through. That would be more from the constructed standpoint. Limited, I think it's going to be solid and limited. I mean, you get a lot of value out of your low drops in the same way. I think that's where this card's going to shine, if anything, is to get a lot of value out of one of the low, like a 1-drop, something like that, a 2-drop, 1-drop. That's just kind of filler in your deck.
Exactly, I agree.
Right on. Okay, this is Mr. Edgar. So this guy, Charmed Groom, so he's 2 and a white and a black for a legendary vampire noble. He's a 4/4 at baseline. Other vampires you control get +1/+1, so he's a vampire lord. And when Edgar, Charmed Groom, dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control, which is a coffin, which we'll explain in just a moment. But at baseline, so you're paying 4 mana for a 4/4, so the stats are okay. Would have liked flying or something maybe for a vampire, but that's okay. So we haven't seen all the vampire cards in the set yet. We'll have a better idea what he's going to look like if there's a vampire deck out there, which will decide if this vampire clause of a vampire lord is actually relevant. So let's move on to the coffin. So Edgar Markov's coffin. I didn't actually know he was a Markov. Anyway, legendary artifact. So basically, the idea here is when he dies, he doesn't actually die. He just goes back into his coffin, which is fitting with Vampire Lore in real life. So this is a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Edgar Markov's coffin. Then, if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. This is a great integration of flavor and gameplay.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I want to make this work because it seems super cool. I love the flavor of it. I don't think it's going to be great unless we get a lot of powerful vampires. I wonder if you run this with Olivia, where she's bringing creatures back from the graveyard, and that stay on the battlefield as long as you control at least one legendary vampire. If you can make a tricolor deck work, to be seen. I think we need to see all the vampires in the set to make a decision.
TBD, for sure.
Okay, next we have one of Mark's favorite cards here, Howling Moon. A green and 2 for an enchantment. The enchantment reads that at the beginning of combat on your turn, any wolf or werewolf you have gets +2/+2 until end of turn. That's it's a recurring kind of giant growth effect every turn for a 3 mana investment, which isn't bad, especially if you're running an aggressive green or aggressive green-red deck that has a lot of wolves and werewolves. And then whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you get to create a 2/2 green wolf token. That's kind of just the cherry on top. Punishes your opponents from trying to stabilize their board, so they really have to think twice if they want to give you another creature that you could then potentially give +2/+2 to, even if that's your only creature on the board. I think it's reasonable. I think it's going to be more of a sideboard card. I think in limited, it depends how many wolves or werewolves you can get into your deck. Overall, I'm not overly impressed, but I think the flavor is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. Like, look at the sheep. They know. They're looking right at the werewolf, or the wolf in this case. It's howling. They're ready to go. They know they're screwed. They're not even turning away to run. They just know they can't run. So anyway, I'm thinking this is going to be in standard. At its best, is going to be a sideboard card against the mono white deck, which loves to double spell. I think other than that, it's going to be a tight place to fit in the deck. 3 mana slot is pretty aggressive. Usually you want an aggressive play on your turn 3. Being able to push the extra +2/+2 is useful, but maybe not at the level of today's constructed. So I like it. Cool flavor. Will it see play? Probably more of a sideboard. Okay, Hullbreaker Horror is next. 5 blue for a creature kraken horror. He's a 7/8 with flash, and he cannot be countered. So whenever you cast a spell, and this, just to be clear, this next clause is after he's already on the battlefield. This doesn't happen. I had to clarify that. Okay, whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, so almost like a divide by 0 type of effect. Or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So either bounce a spell to hand or bounce a card to hand. Now, this is after he's on the board, and of course, he's got this nice ability, Flash. You can play it at the end of the opponent's turn, and then if you double spell, that's kind of cool. You can bounce 2 of their permanents on your turn. Overall, 7's a ton of mana. I don't think he's good enough for constructed. Limited, if your deck can fit him, he'll be fun to play, but he's not so good that you're going to really go out of your way. He's not the kind of card you open and you change colors because you got him. But cool art and fun card, fun flavor.
Right, I agree. I think standard's not going to see any play, just not that good. Limited, you're going to play this to have a 7/8 for 7, kind of have that top end big creature. I don't think its actual abilities are that relevant in limited. People aren't running around with a ton of counter spells. After you're playing this card, hopefully you're winning the next turn, so you're not casting that many spells. And oftentimes you're not going to want to hold this if you can cast it to try and get that ambush. You want to get the 7-8 down kind of as quickly as possible. And so I just don't see it being that great in standard. And then even at limited, we'll have to see how slow the format is. But if games are ending on turn 5 or turn 6, this isn't that great.
Yeah. With you on that.
Then we have Splendid Reclamation. So 4 mana, 1 green for a sorcery. And you get to return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I don't see this being good. There's not a lot of graveyard decks out there right now. Perhaps it's good in a type of Ren deck at some point to make your tokens incredibly large. The flavor is that it's a quote from Ren. I'm just not that impressed. I'm actually surprised this is a rare. I think it'd be more apt to be an uncommon.
Well, they could have had the decency to not make him tapped. You know what I mean? That would have been nice. That would have been a nice little layup on their part. But, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know, I can't think of any card in Standard that wants to do this, but I remember my old Valakut deck would have liked this. If you could somehow combine this with a Valakut type effect where all the lands enter simultaneously and thus all trigger, because Valakut I think it was on your 6th land, then every time a land comes onto the field, it does 3 damage to any target. But if you had, let's say, 3 lands and then 4 lands entered simultaneously, then all 4 of those lands would trigger that 6th land effect because they all see each other coming into play. I don't know if there's anything that powerful in Standard that wants to run that type of effect where there's a big the key is, I think, here, the simultaneous land entering the battlefield. Other than that, I don't, because, you know, how good is it to have your Ren tokens just get really big? That's never the problem. They're always the biggest creature on the board anyway, and they don't really care about, there's nothing even really close. They're often 7/7, 8/8 plus. So that's probably not going to do anything, but I'll think about that. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good point on the Valakut type deck in Historic or that, especially with fetch lands. So you're putting a lot of lands into your graveyard, you're returning them all, and then you can crack them again to get a double trigger. So if you bring back 6, 7 fetch lands, trigger all the triggers you need, and then you crack them again to have it happen again. That's a lot of triggers in one turn. The question is could this be good in the landfall deck that we currently have, with either the Scoop Mob or the Felidar token generator? If you're able to bring in a lot of lands after the 4th or 5th land all at once, is that enough to put your tokens over the top? Right. Probably not, but it'd be a fun idea to try. Yeah,
and if you want to break the format with this card, look at Zendikar. I would recommend.
There you go.
Okay, last one I believe here, the Winged Portent. Really exciting one to end on here. We should have planned this differently. Okay, 1 blue for an instant, where at base value it will draw you a card for each creature with flying you control. Okay, I mean if you have a limited deck that's based around specifically flying creatures and you happen to have a lot of them, this could get you some value. However, the big 1-2 punch here, the cleave for 4 green and blue, you can just draw a card for each creature. So that's for 6. I mean, I don't see this going anywhere. You know, I've seen other cards of this nature that do this same thing more efficiently, more reliably, and they still don't get played. So this one, I don't see it getting, other than the fact that it's an instant, I like that. Instant card advantage is good. 6 mana is just so much though. So, and it looks like it wants you to play it in a Simic shell, right? Green and blue. So that doesn't tend to be the go wide shell. I mean, maybe if it was for green, I mean, if it was like a green and white card that could really draw like the go wide deck a lot of cards, that could be interesting. But I don't think this fits in a lot of ways. I like the idea of there's a million bats here. You know, you can kind of harness the energy in a vampire sort of way, but I don't think it's getting any play in terms of a card.
No, the only thing I like about this card is the moon looks like a skull, and that's about it.
That it does.
Other than that, I think it's not playable in Standard. I don't even know if I would play this in Limited.
Yeah.
I think you have 1 or 2 creatures down, you spend a lot of mana to maybe get a card if you have a creature with flying, or get 2 cards if you're willing to pay 6 mana and use this card to get 2 cards. Like, that's an awful trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible card.
Yeah, we don't like that one. But, so that's it. Just a quick run through, I think about 10 for the day. We'll be back really soon with a lot more cards. There's tons going on. So, yeah, thanks for joining in.